Well, hello, Kitty. Look who's here. All our fans are out there.
Okay, before I actually begin this video, let me tell you a few corrections because after doing the video, I did a little more research and found some errors in the video that I cut. But rather than go back and redo the whole thing, I thought I would just give you the corrections up front here. So first off, I believe there are only 7 knives in the entire Bill Lowen series that you'll see here. These were knives that were made in conjunction with Buck and Smoky Mountain Knife Works. I own 5 of the 7, and after looking up the tang stamps and looking at the buck dating system, it looks like the knives were made in 2007 and 2008, and then 2012 through 2016. I have never seen one other than these 7 knives, but there is always the possibility that knives were also made in the years 2009, 2010, and 2011. But again, I have been looking for the first knife from 2007 for several years, and these are the only 7 knives that I have been able to locate. And like I said, I only have 5 of the 7. And as for the other correction that I need to make, I believe the contest that Smoky Mountain Knife Works was running, where you could win the bass boat and several other things, was only done in the very first 2 years, the years that the canoe was out and the mini trapper were out. I don't believe they were running the contest in the years 2012 through 2016. Okay, with that done, let's move on to the main video. A few weeks ago, I had a viewer contact me about this specific knife. This is the Bill Lowen Buck Knives SMKW collaboration for a giveaway that SMKW had, and this was I believe, the last in the long line of these knives. This is the teardrop jack in this line of knives. And before I go into about this knife, let me explain a little bit about how it came about. Smoky Mountain Knife Works and I think Buck Knives joined up with Bill Lowen, the Bassmaster, for a annual giveaway that they were doing. Every year they would do this big giveaway where someone would win among other things, there was like a bass boat and a bunch of gear. I can't remember how much the grand prize was in it, but the way they did it was, I believe they made something like 10,000 of these knives, of each knife, and as you see, they have this largemouth bass as the shield on the knife, and it's a nickel silver bolster. I'm sorry, a nickel silver shield on the knife. But one knife out of all of the ones made would have a gold largemouth bass on there. Now, I don't know if it was gold plated or what, but it was definitely gold. It wasn't nickel silver. Some people would look at the nickel silver and say, oh, it's tarnished. Is that gold? But no, it was clearly a gold largemouth bass on that. And if you ended up being the lucky person who purchased the gold largemouth bass, well, you won the big prize. And so even if you were buying it in the store, you were not allowed to look at the knife ahead of time. You picked up the knife and you got what you got. So that's the way, as far as I know, that it went. Now, what the person had asked about was I familiar with the blades that are on this? And yes, well, obviously I've got the knife, so I'm very familiar with the blades on it. But it's kind of a cool knife. All of them were kind of cool. But I'll start with this one, then I will go back and look at some of the other ones that were also in the series. The thing that the person was talking about on here is really the secondary blade, which, as you know, is a small little pin blade, and if you notice, it is serrated. A lot of people think it was designed that way for scaling fish, and I guess you could use it for a fish scaler, but it is a very small fish scaler. You see the overall length, well, let's say the cutting edge of the blade
is 1.5 inches. And the serrated portion comes in right at 7/8 of an inch, so you'd be a long time scaling fish with it. But I think what that really is a little blade for cutting off fins and stuff like that, and cutting bone and such. Otherwise, what you also have on the blade, or the primary blade on the knife, is a really nice Spearmaster blade there. And you see that comes in at right at 2 3/4 inches overall, with a 2.5 inch cutting edge. And the knife itself comes in at 3 3/4 of an inch. That's how long it is when it's closed. So it's a nice big knife, and it's really got a beautiful shape to it. You got the slant bolster in the front. I could have done without that. It could have been a regular bolster. And then you have this bail or clevis on the back here. And if you notice, the clevis is supposed to be like a fish hook that has been bent around to make the hook, and from what the clevis. And I believe this was actually something that Brian Wilhoit came up with, and you will later see this same clevis being used on some Roughrider fish knives. Hold on just a sec. Now, Roughrider did two fish knives. One of them was in the red pick bone, and notice it's just got a regular powder horn end down here. But they also did one in the copper series, and they put a hook sharpening stone on the side there, and also they added the same fish hook clevis on the back of the knife there. So that was pretty cool. But that fish hook clevis began in the Bill Lowen line of knives. Now, like I mentioned, they did this for 7 years. I've only got 5 of the knives because it wasn't something that I was going to be picking up until basically the 3rd year rolled around. And in the 3rd year, they came out with a large toothpick in the lineup. And this was the 5-inch toothpick that they did. You notice I did not get the gold shield, but that's okay. And then all of the blades had some kind of blade etch on there. This one was I'm hooked, and then you got Bill Lowen's signature there. And as you see, it is by Buck, and there it is, the pattern number 386. I guess I could look at the little symbol there and figure out what year this knife was made, because these were produced by Buck, but they were made in China, as you can see right there, in the Roughrider factory. So this was basically, but as you can also tell in this knife, it's got a saber grind blade. It isn't like your typical Roughrider toothpick because of the way the blade is made. So it's a pretty cool knife. And then once I got this is the 3rd year of production of these Bill Lowen line of Buck knives. I said, well, now that they made the toothpick, I'll go ahead and pick up the other 2, which was not as easy as you think. And so I was not able to get the very first year, which was a canoe, a white smooth bone canoe. And it had the little shield on there too. Like I said, I wasn't interested when they first came out, so I missed that one. But I was able to go back and get the 2nd year's knife, which was a mini trapper. And notice the mini trapper here was in like a green bone. Looks kind of like seaweed or something. And 2 blades on there, and you see hooked on fishing, easily stamped in there. And then there's the year of production for it, 382. That's the pattern number. And then it had a secondary blade, which was the just a regular spay blade. There was nothing fancy about it yet, with Bill Lowen's signature on it. And the original canoe that came in there was just also a standard canoe. But after the 3rd year, they started doing something a little bit different, and that's where you start seeing the some kind of fish scaler showing up on them, like I said, this was the 7th year as far as I know. I'm not sure if this was the 4th year or the 5th year, because there's also a 3-blade trapper out there, and I'm not sure when the 3-blade trapper came out. So when I start looking at this a little closer and figuring out what all these little symbols are for bud or for buck, then I'll know where it came from. But this was the fish knife. This is the first one that showed up with the little fish hook clevis on the end here, and it's also the first basically knife that was that was a fish knife for a fisherman. So it's kind of interesting. The first year you had a canoe, then a mini trapper. The toothpick kind of falls into a knife that a fisherman could use, but this, the fish knife, I mean, it is a fish knife for a fisherman. And you see here, once again, catch you later, this time on the blade, and the Lowen signature. And then, oh, also, if you notice, a lock. So you have a lock on the blade, which was pretty cool, which is missing in the Roughrider knives. The Roughrider knives do not have a liner lock on the main blade. So this knife was pretty cool. And then you had the fish scaler with the cap lifter or bottle opener. You notice you have a scale going on here, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches. And then this is the newer style scaler, which is very close and very sharp. And you can actually use it for cutting through fish bone and stuff. And then you got the hook remover at the end there. So really well made knife. And yeah, it's made in China, but a really well made knife. And once again, if you notice, the main blade has that saber grind going on. So this was a well thought out, well made knife. And once again, I did not win because a nickel silver bass fish on there, nickel silver bolsters, and brass liners. And I believe the steel used in these was 440A, but don't quote me on that. It might have been Buck's 420J2. And then we had this thing, which was referred to as a jumbo trapper, but let's face it, to me it was a folding hunter. Notice the back is almost white smooth bone. You can barely see any blue on there, but you do have some decent coloring on the front there. Just hooked up this time, it says there. And now you're seeing some of the other things that you see on so many other knives that were coming out from Colt and stuff, with the swedges showing up and everything else. And you have a really interesting clip blade. Again, you have Bill Lowen's signature there, and then the Buck symbol showing up there, and again, a liner lock for the main blade. And then for a secondary blade, at first you're looking at it going, it's a Warncliffe, but it's, again, a serrated Warncliffe that you can use for scaling fish or for cutting through fish bone. It would have been nice to have that blade with the liner lock, but they decided to do it on the main blade. But really good action going on with it now. And if you notice, now we are talking about half stops and everything. The earlier knives did not have the half stops. They just went all the way around and locked. And then finally, the very last knife in the group was this one here, the teardrop. And by now, I was hoping for, what are they going to come out with next year? Notice also on the back of the teardrop, they actually have a 2-inch rule on the back. So it's kind of interesting that they put it on there. And if you also notice, you can see the black liner underneath the bone was not here. So this was like you see the evolution of these knives as they slowly got better and better and better, and went away from the idea of just turning out a basic knife as they slowly improved. You notice this blade, the main blade, the spear blade, has a very slight amount of swedge going on, so you got a good poker, but the swedge is not over exaggerated or anything, so it's really a well-made knife, I thought. A lot of people thought the serrated pen blade was kind of goofy. I kind of liked it. You can actually use it for cutting through a small fish bone or something like that. Plus, it's just nice to have a secondary blade that was serrated. And again, if you notice, for those folks who really like a half stop, the knives had a really good half stop. And they continued to put on the little fishhook clevis. And then after this year, they decided to go in a different direction. So this is the last year that they teamed up with Bill Lowen, Buck Knives and Smoky Mountain Knife Works would go on to make another series, but it would not be with Bill Lowen. I'm not sure if they skipped a year or if they skipped 2 years or what, but later on they would do 2 years with Mr. Crappie, Wally Marshall. The only knife I have of that grouping is the what do they call it? The Sow Belly Trapper. And again, you have the main blade. Now, if you notice, it has slightly serrated here, and then a spade blade, which is not at all serrated. And you have a little bit of pearl and abalone in there, plus the really nice crappie fish shield. Again, this was by Buck, and I know at this time these were using 420 steel. Not sure what those were using. I believe it was either their 420J2 or, like I said, 440A. All of them have been made in the Roughrider factory, though. In any case, hope you like this stroll down memory lane. Stick around for a few slides of these knives. let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.